Hello everyone, my name is Todd Vaughan and I'm a student at CareerFoundry and I'm currently studying user experience design, and in this presentation I'm going to be showcasing the design process for an app I created called the Slang Game. The Slang Game is a gaming app designed to help people learn the meanings of various American slang words and phrases. So let's go ahead and get started here. Going into this project, I initially interviewed 3 different people. These were people who all recently had to learn some new vocabulary. And one of the people I interviewed was a teacher. He was in his 30s and worked multiple jobs and likes to play games and get on social media on his phone. So from him, I was able to derive my primary persona, Nick. So here we have Nick Long. He's 32 years old. He is a music teacher and part-time Uber driver. He has multiple degrees. Originally he's from California, but he's living in Atlanta now. And he likes to play games on his phone and is active mainly on Facebook, but he does use Instagram as well. And Nick has 3 main goals that he wants to accomplish. 1, he wants to stay fresh on slang so he can connect easily with his students. 2, he wants to find a new app that teaches him something, but is also fun to use. And he also wants to find a new app to kill time with in between Uber rides so that he's not bored. So for Nick, the main problem that I needed to solve was to find a way for him to learn slang in a fun manner. So with that, I created 3 main problem statements for him. First statement, Nick needs a way to stay fresh on the latest slang because he wants to connect easily with his young students. Second, Nick needs a way to learn something new in a fun and easy manner because he works a lot and doesn't want to feel overwhelmed in his free time. Lastly, Nick needs a way to kill time when his part-time job is slow because he doesn't like to be bored. So let's delve a little deeper into these actual challenges that Nick is facing so we can make sure that we really fine-tune the right app for Nick. Now, first and foremost is the whole issue of slang. Now, Nick feels old sometimes because he doesn't understand all the lingo his students use. As he says here, I like to stay hip for my students. Nick is in his 30s, so that's still pretty young, but he teaches predominantly kids and teenagers. And, 15, 16-year-olds probably aren't listening to the same music and watching the same shows that a 30-year-old would be watching. And so sometimes they're saying stuff around Nick that kind of just goes over his head. But he wants to be a cool teacher. He teaches music. He teaches drums and guitar. So he wants to be the fun, hip teacher, make his students laugh and everything, build good rapport with them. And, if you know how to say turn and YOLO and ratchet, your students are going to embrace you. So that's important. And, we need to make sure that we get an app for him that can help him with that slang. Second, Nick has limited free time. He works 2 jobs. As he says here, working 2 jobs keeps me very busy and very tired. So when I have free time, I like to just relax. Now, Nick, he wants to be able to learn something new. But unfortunately, when you're learning new things, depending on what it is, that could be an additional burden for you, could provide some stress. And that's certainly something we don't want. So whatever app is created for him needs to be something where he's learning, but it doesn't feel like he's learning because we don't want to add any additional stress to his busy lifestyle. 3, Nick's second job can be boring. He drives for Uber, which of course can be busy, but there could also be lots of downtime while he's sitting around just waiting for passengers. And that time can be kind of boring for him. So he really wants, a new app that he can just kind of play around with to kill time. So whatever app gets designed for him needs to be something that's, you can easily do on the go. Lastly, specifically dealing with app challenges, Nick doesn't like remembering a lot of passwords. He says, I can never remember my passwords. I prefer to log into apps with Facebook so I don't have to remember another password. And that's very understandable. So with the app that's created for him, it needs to be something where he can have multiple login options. So, taking all this into account, what I decided to create for Nick was a gaming app specifically dealing with learning slang. And this would kind of kill multiple birds with one stone. It would help him with learning slang. It also will be teaching him something. He'll be learning slang. And it's a game, so it'll be fun. Something that'll, keep him engaged. And it's simple. He can do it while he's sitting around, waiting for passengers between Uber rides. And, I'll make sure that there is a Facebook login for him. So I started, if I can get my screen to come up here, I started doodling and coming up with some wireframes and everything in my grid notebook here. You can see where I had some things that I either messed up or decided not to use, so I scratched through them. And I also, from these screens, developed an interactive prototype. So from there, the Slang Game was born. These are some of the screens from the game. This would be the splash screen design here. That's the first screen that pops up when you open the game. This is the login screen. And these are a couple of snippets of what the actual game play screens would look like. The object of the game is you're playing with someone else, even though there is a solo option too. But the main piece of the game is playing against a friend. And this example here, Eric's party was lit. Lit, bold words, it's a slang term here. And the object is to guess which of these meanings is the correct meaning for the word lit. And so there'll be a series of questions like that, and whoever gets the most answers right in the fastest amount of time would be the winner. And as you can see, this is what the sample score screen would look like. So I decided to test 4 areas of this app. I had 3 participants here. The first area was logging in via Facebook account, because that's something that's important to Nick, and that would be something that a lot of people would do. A lot of people would log in with Facebook. 2, signing up as a new user. Every person is going to have to do that initially when they first open up the app for the first time. So I want to make sure that process was straightforward. Playing a game with a Facebook friend. This is a gaming app, so playing around with a friend is really the heart of the app. So I want to make sure that process was straightforward and intuitive. Lastly, changing your password. Security is important, and some people still will prefer to, sign up with the email and password. So I want to make sure they know how to change their password if need be. If you'd like to test the actual prototype, it is available online right here at this link here. You can check it out and try to use the app and see how well you think it works. Now, as far as issues I ran into, after doing the testing, I did realize a couple things. One, as you can see, this is the home screen. This is where you start a game. And this is the menu here. And I realized there was no menu option to get back to the home screen. This became an issue with a couple of the participants when they were trying to do stuff like changing their password. They got kind of stuck because they couldn't get back to, this home screen. Also, during the onboarding process, these screens here show up when you first sign up as a new user. These little circles were not clickable, and these screens only swipe to the left. So if you missed something on the previous screen, you weren't able to go back and look at it. And so that was something I knew definitely needed to be addressed. So next steps to improve the app. Main thing here is make it easier for users to access previous screens. A user should be able to navigate around the app with no problem. So I'm going to add a home option to the menu, provide some additional back buttons, and also fix that swiping process on the onboarding screens. A couple other suggestions that some of the my testing participants gave was allowing the players to chat with one another and adding prizes like coins and power-ups. And that's just kind of stuff that would just kind of make the overall gaming experience a little more exciting. So in conclusion, I learned quite a few things about the design process, and definitely some things to keep in mind for future designs that I do. There were 4 things that I really consider pros about designing, the design process. One, researching apps is very helpful. It really, is beneficial to see what's out there, to see how people have already addressed the problem that you want to try and solve. They may have done something that's well, but maybe you feel you could do it more efficiently than what they've done. So it's good to see what's out there, and it, just helps you get the creative juices going. Sketches, they really help to visualize the product. User testing is essential. Without testing my app with some of the, outside participants, I may not have caught some of the things, such as not being able to get back to previous screen so easily. It helps to have a different set of eyes look at your prototype, because they can point out things that you just didn't notice. Lastly, user flows and task analysis make the wireframing and prototyping stage a lot easier. I did some user flows to help me figure out the logic of how a person would get from point A to point B before I started actually doing the wireframes. And it makes it so much easier, because when you're doing the wireframes, all you got to worry about is the visuals. You don't have to worry about, the logic. Now, cons, 3 things I came up with. Researching, even though it is very helpful, it can also be a bit overwhelming and intimidating. And that's because, you're looking at finished products when you're, looking at Google Play and the App Store. You don't get to see the rough stages that the people went through, all that early UX stuff that they did. So when you see those finished products, it could be a little intimidating. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do something as well as that. Especially for me as a newbie. Sketching, it's great, but it's very time consuming. And lastly, it is easy to get caught up in the visuals too early on, as opposed to focusing on the user flow. And that's mainly when you're doing the sketches. The sketches are there for you to make it easy for the user to be able to just look at the screen and figure out how to get from point A to point B. And when you are in that stage of, visualizing stuff, you can kind of start thinking too much about colors and fonts and whatnot. And that's really not necessary that early in the design process. So that concludes my presentation for the Slang Game. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.